Alright, how's it going everybody? Dave here, and today's just a few videos here and there just to help out fellow apprentices. But today we're doing a small video just in case you want to know. I mean, you can do things on your own as far as falconry equipment goes to a certain extent. I should kind of challenge you to push your limits a little bit. But so today I have my leather. There's many different types of leather out there you can buy. Different colors, different thickness, depends on how decorative you want to get with your equipment. Anyway, this small video is going to be on making jesses. Now, particularly leather jesses, because I'm going to pull these out real fast. There are other styles of jesses that you can do. Let's see, I have a few in here. These are different types of field jesses for some of the birds, different sizes. They're field jesses because they don't have anything to attach a leash to. Let's see what else I got in here. This could be a muse style jess because it does have a spot to attach your leash to. Let's see, I thought I had a leather one already in here. They're all in the birds. I may have one up here. This is an old one here, so forgive it. But this is a really old one that we had used for a very long time for small birds. And there's only one left. I don't know what happened to the other one, so it's time to make some new stuff. But today we're going to focus on making leather jesses. Later on we'll get into these. Template for trapping jesses is what I call those. Get this out of the way. Some of the equipment I'm going to use today, I have two forms of measuring devices. It's your standard fabric, your cloth, tape measure, steel ruler. I need a new one soon because all my numbers are wearing off. I use it so much. So for now, I'm pretty much using it for a straight edge. Different pen, fine tip marker, X-Acto knife, scissors, and a hole punch. I have this little thing here, this little template here for a small anklet, only because I already know it's a 1/4 inch thick and it kind of helps me out a little bit. So I bring my leather out and I take it to the rough side, because the rough side is a lighter side. You can see that. Any type of writing you want to do on your untreated side, because it's going to be the innards of the products you're making. So all I'm going to do, some of it's eyeballing. It's your preference. It's custom built. Some of it you can do for, you can measure it. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to use this little piece. You're going to measure a 1/4 inch. Now the thickness of the jesses will vary on the species of bird you're keeping as well. So don't be like, well, Dave said. All right, so that's my general top line I want to use for the straight. Okay. So create that little straight edge, put that on there, make a line for my secondary straight edge, a parallel line. Same thing right there. And one more. Anytime you're making dots or lines, to create a line, you want 3 positions, 1, 2, and 3. I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera because we are on a blacker fabric. That way when I line up the 3 lines, you have less of a chance of creating a angle. Your lines will be more parallel. This marker is sucking, so I'm going to go ahead and try this pen real quick. Okay. Yeah, it's a lot better. No. Okay. There we go. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and do another one, 1/4 inch off of that one. And like I said, this little template I have, I already know is a 1/4 inch. That works in my favor. One little dot. Dot number 2. Dot number 3. I know a lot of people do their videos where they fast forward through the process when it's kind of monotonous and just repetitive. But it would give you a false sense of how long this actually takes. So let's keep it real. Alright, so here's my straight line here. You see I'm being really fast, really rough with it. There's no need to baby it. So one thing I want to keep in mind, because people are probably wondering right now, what's the length that I'm choosing? I went roughly 12 inches. That would be from here to this line. So we're just actually shy of 12. We're more at like probably 11.5 inches. Let's see. So I have two options now. I can use the scissors and I can cut them out. I can use the X-Acto knife and cut them out. So sometimes what I like to do is I like to do the outer box with the scissors, just because it's a little bit faster that way. Probably off camera right now. Sorry about that. Having the camera set up like that versus a person being out here holding the camera for me makes a huge difference. I usually would GoPro it, or my wife would be out here holding the camera for me patiently. Let's get rid of scraps. What's not scraps? Let's get rid of that for now. Trim it. You'll learn the more you do these, the more you have room to play as far as what you want to do and how you want them to be. This is your world. I'm going to put a happy Jess over here. Nice little happy cut right here. Do what you want to do. It's your world. Alright, so, and then my X-Acto knife, go straight down the center. Watch your fingers. Please watch your fingers. Sharp objects are never fun. I have a nice cutting mat underneath here that my wife had gotten. It's a blessing. Number one reason it's a blessing is because it saves you from getting your butt whooped by your wife when you're putting gouge marks in her coffee tables and dining room tables and stuff. Don't be that guy. Okay, so there's my leather. I'm going to do most of the work first, and then we're going to get, okay, so let's get into it. All right, let's see. So I'm going to fold this down to about where I think the size of my button should be. And the button is this. This is your button that you create, and this is the tail. And I'm going to create that button, and the way I'm going to do it is I'm eyeballing it, but if you want to know, it is about a 1/2 inch. It's about a 1/2 inch down. It's a pretty good eyeball. Is where I'm going to set that up. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go to the center of that. I don't know if you can see that too well. I'm going to go to center. I already chose the size of the hole that I want to make. Okay, which is the largest one on my punch. To the center. Give it a good squeeze. Alright. That creates your 2 holes. Okay. So that's the fun part. Now, your bottom here you want to have an angle to your bottom. Depending on how thick your jess is, these are pretty thick jesses, okay? You can see the difference in the thickness of these jesses versus these, okay? Depends on the size of the grommets you're going to use and things like that. Once again, the species of bird. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and mark up about an inch. Just put my one on that line right there. And I'm going to go ahead and take my pen and draw a little tiny line. And that's on both of these. So I want my tails to be pretty much identical. The way you want them to be. Okay. Here's the fun part. My wife asked me one day, why is it that you get the rough side, smooth side, and they're always, this is a different type of cut, but why is the cut always the same direction? So they're not a left and a right jess. And that's one of the reasons. But you can go ahead, I'm going to do it today, I'm going to play around. I'm going to go ahead and go from the right side, going from that line I made to the corner. Okay, put it underneath my ruler. Take my X-Acto knife and run it down. Okay, and I just made a little tiny tail. Now this one, I'll do the opposite side. Okay, there we go. So I have two opposing tails, a left and a right, versus both of them being on the same side. Okay. This one I'm going to go ahead and bring down a ½ inch. Should probably just focus on one jess for y'all. Make the video a little bit shorter, but that's what we'll do. And now the fun part. I'm going to fold this in to itself the way you had it. You're going to take your leather. Your leather's going to be a little stiff when you first buy it. I always recommend doing it dried. You can wet the leather, make it softer, more pliable, but if you do that, you're not going to get an accurate measurement because your leather's going to stretch when it's wet versus when it's dry. Your jesses are supposed to be dry at all times, so why would you want to measure wet? Okay, so all I did is I creased it quite a bit. And now, feed it through both the holes that you just made, through this hole and through this hole. And that's why you had the little tiny angle corn or angle tip instead of the big broad tip. Now this takes a little finagling. You just got to keep wiggling, keep pulling. It's going to be a tight fit, but that's what you want. Okay, you want that nice tight fit. Eventually, when I can get enough through, I can get a good bite on it and just slip it all the way through. And you see when you've slipped it through, I didn't tighten it all the way down yet, it creates that button that I was talking about. So now take that button, I'm going to pull real tight on it. So you don't want your button to get smaller after the fact, after you have it on the anklet. So there's the button you made. Pretty nice looking, right? Alright, so pretty simple. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to measure up again. What I'm going to do is take this. This would be, you'd stop right here for a nice field jess. Field jess versus training jess versus a mew jess. The difference is there's nothing down here to connect your clips to from a leash. If you can't connect your leash, I'll show you what I'm talking about real quick. That's your leash. So this one here, I could slip this through and clip it on. Done. So your bird is now leashed off to your glove. But what can happen in the field is these can open a little bit and they can get caught on branches and twigs and trees and you get stuck in a tree. So some people like to fly with these so there's nothing to get caught on any branches. Some people just punch a hole. They'll take this punch as is, punch a hole, and that hole is enough to slip this up through and clip it on. Okay, so there's three styles. Nothing, a hole, or a slit. For today's, to teach you the one I want to focus on today, we're going to go with the slit. So we will measure up from the tip to about, let's go 1 inch up. So right about there. Take my pen, mark 1 inch. And right about at that 1 inch line, I'm going to take my smallest setting, and probably, let's go to the second smallest because it's such a wide set. Second smallest punch. And I'm going to go on to the center of that line I made. So my line's right there to identify where I want my hole to be. And I'll punch a hole. That's it. Okay. Now obviously, if that was, this might actually still work for, yeah, it would. See, you can still connect through that hole. To be honest with you, it's really complicated to do that one-handed, to slip that through that one hole with a bird bouncing around and stuff. So that would be the secondary field jess with a tiny hole. So from this hole, I'm going to measure up again, and I'm going to go, let's say from the edge of it, I'm going to go with like ½ inch, okay? And I'll make a little tiny mark right there. And then I'm going to take my punch, and I'm going to set it there, and I'll punch that second hole. Okay? Now, what you can do for the holes I made up here, and the holes I make down here, I could take my second jess, set it on there, and use it as a template, which I will do, which is more convenient. And I will put a dot right there where those two holes are done. That way, when I go to do this one here, they're mirrored, they're identical. It's pretty cool, pretty simple to do. First one's a hard one. So, 2 holes are made. After the 2 holes are made, all you're gonna do is connect the dots. You're gonna take your X-Acto knife, and you're gonna run from one dot to the second dot. Nice straight line, and that's your slice. That is now done. The reason you do you punch the holes is because if I put a cut in there, once the leather is cut, it tends to continue to rip. So when you punch a clean hole on the tips and then your lines cut between them, the leather won't continue to rip. It makes a dead spot. So that's your anklet right there, or correction, I'm so sorry, jess. Before we go any further, now you want to treat your jess. So I just take a little brush. You can do, I don't have my rag on me right now. You can do a rag. I'm just using, you can buy jess grease, anklet grease. You could use oils, there's types of oils you can use. There's certain oils you want to not use because your birds can have a reaction to things like tea tree oil, for example, is not good for birds. So all I'm doing is I'm protecting the leather of this. My wife actually made me a small container, but I'm using a saddle soap right now. My wife made me a container of my own personal jess grease. Look it up, you can find the ingredients, it's pretty simple to make. We're using, on this, we're using Fibbing's saddle soap. Both sides, even though this is a treated side of the leather, I do both sides anyway. Let it soak in, let it absorb. I'll tell you, it's going to have that greasy feel to it at first. I work it with my hands. The heat helps it. You can see how much more pliable that leather is getting. I absolutely love this. And I'm stretching as I'm doing it. It's a lot more pliable. You can see a difference in how they look. This is both the unfinished side and then the finished sides. Finished side didn't do much too, but the unfinished side it really did. All right, and voila. Take your anklet and then you feed it through. And because it's treated, it goes through a lot simpler. And that's it, my friends. The bird's leg is like this, and that's your anklet. And jess. So your jesses, though, left leg, right leg, you want them to be coming from the outside in, always. From the outside, from the thighs to the groin. is how you want your jesses to go. And I'm going to go ahead myself here. I'm going to shut the video off, but you get the point. They're very, very simple to make. Now these are going to go, if you're wondering why these in particular are this big, because you have to imagine the bird sitting up about that high. Glove there, like why so long? These are going to go on owls. I got a few rehab owls that I have to, they're soon going to be ready to get released. So I want them to be able to go in a creance. So we'll do a little work with them to get them on a creance to work up that strength, the wings, things like that, the muscle. Anyway, a little sidetrack for you. There you go. That's how you make jesses. New video coming soon.